G'day everyone, I'm Dave, thanks for joining me. Sorry, it's been a little while since I've actually shot a video. I have been very busy coding and very busy keeping tabs on what's happening in the world of AI, of which we are going to discuss today. Now, 2025, just about finished, about a week to go. Been a very interesting year. 2026 is going to be an amazing year because even if we look back over this year, the advances across the board in AI and the understanding of the agentic workflow and the massive capability increases of these AI agents, AI assistants, LLMs, the changing in the landscape. So today's video, I want to actually give you some examples of what has happened this year. I'll focus on some actual practical solutions and practical things that I've done, that I've shown over the year in the course of my videos. And also I want to project about next year. Now I know everyone makes predictions for next year, but based on what's happened this year, I think it's going to be a very interesting year. So this video really is just about me recapping where the landscape sits, particularly aimed at small to medium-sized businesses. So you guys out there that have actually got businesses, because this year was the year you could sort of push it back a bit. Oh, do I implement AI? Do I not implement AI? There's still a massive pushback against AI. And I think the main two reasons for this is this news floating around that it's a huge bubble. And that's probably one thing. The other thing is, in all honesty, it's just the realization that you need to change. So a lot of the commentators out there are literally saying these large companies like Deloitte's and PricewaterhouseCoopers and all these large consultancy firms are really stuck, because what's happening is they go to a large company, the large company's got their software in place, they've got their mechanisms, they've got their databases, they've got their whole system done. And now with AI, it's actually quicker to totally rebuild from scratch with AI on an AI-based model. And people can't get their head around that. So I want to try and give an example of just what's happened this year with some facts and figures, and again, some projections for next year. So I would start off to say that the changes this year in certain specific domains of AI and where it's implemented have far exceeded what people expect. I think the uptake and the implementation is certainly lagging behind. And I believe it's lagging behind for structural reasons within larger businesses. And I believe it's lagging behind purely for fear of not understanding what AI actually does. So I've tried to show in my videos and break it down to the simple things of you are literally just buying intelligence. So if you think of AI as a new age where intelligence is super cheap, in abundance, available from multiple different companies, and then how do we implement that into the business? So a couple of my earlier videos this year, I basically, when I meet these company owners and these founders, I say to them, look, let's start off just with a simple idea. What could have you have done before AI was even around that you can now improve with AI? So something that your business already does. Now, AI will enable you to 10x, 50x, 100x what actually happens. And I can give you a couple of examples of that. So straight away, just from a productivity point of view, even if you don't understand AI in what its powers can actually be when implemented properly, that is the first thing to look at within your business. The second thing is, what can AI do now that is you've never been able to really do? And I'm not talking about it's impossible to do, but it might have taken months and months to do that you can now do in a couple of hours. So those two things alone are the starting point for any business. So over the Christmas break, New Year's break, when you're having a beer around the barbie or wherever you happen to be, laying on a beach in Thailand or holidaying with the family, and you've come to the realization, well, next year, New Year's resolution, I'm going to have to implement some AI. Don't be scared of it. Basically look at it as buying intelligence and being able to implement that into your business. So without further ado, we'll go down here and I'll run you through a couple of things this year just to give you some facts and figures so you can actually understand how quickly these things are actually growing and what the change in direction or a couple of ideas that hopefully will help you out next year. So going back not even a year, going back 9 months ago, and I've got this documented in my previous videos, we'll go down here now, I made the decision to actually set up some directory sites. Now, I started with two initially, one in Sutherland Shire in Sydney and the other one in Bondi. So I just wanted to show you the figures that from the launch of this site to where we've actually got to now. Now, the idea of this site, like any directory site, is it goes and gathers the information and it actually puts together a very useful resource for locals. Now, we're using all sorts of different types of intelligence for this. We're using AI to actually answer the message and then create the email to the site owner, verbatim. Then we're using AI to actually go in and clean up the responses. So if someone makes a response and it's, the spelling's not quite correct, or there's an issue with it, being swearing or, something that people shouldn't be saying, the second level of AI would go in and clean that up and publish this to this site. Now, these sites then become what we call topical authority. So a site like Sutherland Sally or Bondi Bronty, right? They are actually set up for businesses to be able to advertise and be found, but more importantly, they're also set up as an example of what AI can actually do and how these AI chat interfaces are the way of the future. Now, the uptake of these chat interfaces is still quite slow because people just think AI is ChatGPT, or maybe now they're getting onto Gemini or some on Perplexity, some on Claude, but they think it's just an interaction between A and B. You ask the AI something, it answers. But it's far more than that. That is just scratching the surface. When you're using API calls and you're running the intelligence in your business, this is where it really starts to shine. So using these two sites just as a pure example, and they're just a directory site, let's have a look at the power of what AI actually does. So starting cold, here's a site brand new from scratch. Let's have a look at some of the figures. Now, if we look back in March where the site was just launched in March, you can see here there's a steady increase and a good flow of unique visitors coming to this site. So in the 9 months, 26,000 people have gone to this site. So that was only created 9 months ago. Now, most of the answers and questions on this site have been what we call synthetic data. They've been created by AI with market research to find the answers that people actually want. So if, for example, we go to Sally here, we can see that Sally has answered lots and lots of questions, all on every single possible topic. Best places for pasta. Let's have a look at that. Okay, these are the questions that people have asked and or that we've actually got the search through the LLMs to provide what people are actually asking and the outputs of what they're asking. All this information is being stored permanently, created instantly as a web page that is then giving topical authority. Now, why is topical authority important? Topical authority is important because no longer do we just go to Google and we go, hey, let's Google it and get 10 blue links that we're going to click on. The world has changed. The one big shift from 2025 that people have definitely noticed is the fact that a website is a static repository, like a library. So imagine you walk into a library, you have to then go and find what book you want. What happens now is when you walk into the library, the AI assistant, in this case Sutherland Sally, becomes the actual librarian. It stops you in your tracks. You don't have to search for books. It brings the questions and answers to you. That is a shift in the way that people get information. The second big shift is what we call making your information available for agents, because the one thing that will happen, if it doesn't happen next year, it's certainly going to be happening in 2027, is that everyone will really have their own AI personal assistant that you are just going to ask to do tasks. And those tasks will be things like book me a holiday, get me a balloon trip, or whatever you want to do, right? You need to have an AI assistant involved with your business to be able to be found by other AI assistants. So I pointed that out from the start of the year. Now, on that, let's have a look at the comparison. Now, Google, let's use that as the gold standard, right? If we look at the Google report here for Bondi Bronty, we can see that literally the entire year, right, we have only had a couple of pages indexed. So what I would call, we are really not on Google. We are not being found. Bondi Bronty is not being found on Google, according to this. This is the console of the designer, which is me, that has access, and it is telling me that Google has only indexed 2 pages. Okay, if we then juxtapose that with Sutherland Sally, we can see Sutherland Sally has had a constant number of pages indexed, which means they're being found on search. Now, is that going to relate to what actually physically happens in the real world? Let's have a look. So if we now go to Bondi Bronty and we look at her figures, we can see that her figures are about the same as Sutherland Sally. So about 25,000 unique visitors in the last 9 months and growing. And we can see that it's growing here, right? You can see that, you know, other days, some days it's big, some days it's small, but it's growing and it's starting to grow, which is the idea. You want to seed the field so you can actually see what's happening. Now, ironically, as you can see, one is found by Google, the other is really not found by Google. Yet, the same amount of people have visited. Why is that, I hear you cry? It's because of LLMs. It's being referred, it's being referenced, it's becoming a topical authority because it contains conversation, it contains data and information. That is what the LLM wants to give the client that is asking. This will only project as well when the clients are other AI assistants. And this is the world we're heading into. So that's how I started the year. Now, just another bit of a recap. To see what I'm talking about topical authority, what we'll do is we'll now look at a company that I've referred to before, which is a carpet company in Sydney. So they sell carpet in Sydney in the Sutherland Shire. So what they've done is they've actually created a topical authority engine for them to promote carpet in general, which is their domain. And this works very well. So in other videos, you can go back and look at my previous videos, I've actually shown all the facts and figures and the referrals. So as this is a recap, I won't dive too deeply into that, but you'll actually now see what the topical authority can mean for your business. You own the conversation. Don't be reliant on having to try and just get other backlinks and all sorts of stuff that you used to do in the SEO world. LLMs are seeking the truth. That is the thing. If you've got a good business and you have got the truth out there and conversation about your product, it will get found by LLMs if it's valued information. They are seeking the truth, not paid ads. And this is where, as I say, you've got 10 grand, you can go and place, put it on Google Ads or Facebook. The problem is you'll get an instant hit, but the long run of that is not there. And what's going to happen is you really need to look at where you're going to spend your advertising money and how you're going to impact being found. Because if you're not being found by LLMs in the future, you are not being found, right? So that is where the topical authority comes in. So let's go down and have a look here. So the British Carpet Company, very clever, have got an AI assistant front and center. We've seen this before. All the questions that are asked by the AI assistant get published straight away to a page so people can actually see the questions and answers that other people have asked with images and so forth. This is incredibly good for LLMs. It makes it very, very valuable information. Now, not only relying on their own personal AI assistant, which makes great sense because websites no longer need to go and click, click, click to find the information. The information's there when you ask for it. But to get that, Carpet Sydney, which is set up as a topical authority on carpet in Sydney and even Australia, has thousands and thousands of questions answered here ready to go. That all refer back to the British Carpet Company, right? So the British Carpet Company becomes the recommended company for what goes on here. We can see Shaggy's answered all these different questions, and they will go back and answer questions for the general public, become references and citations for the LLMs to then recommend whatever company. So your business really should look at owning the topical authority in your domain. That hasn't changed from this year. That is going to be even bigger next year and bigger again as it goes on. You plant the seed. You own the conversation about what you do. Right? That is the best money you will spend because it will grow and grow like a little sapling. It gets bigger, and you can see by the figures I've presented there that that's what will happen. Okay, let's take it across to other genres. Now, here's just two examples that I have mentioned earlier that I've done this year. If we look at Decorator Rugs, same deal. Decorator Rugs is basically a site that has been set up for Deportier rugs. So let's move myself over here. So we can see Deportier have an AI assistant on their site that will answer all the questions on their rugs, but driving traffic to that site is Kate, right? Here she is. Kate is here, and she's an expert on all rugs. So she gives answers and questions about rugs, and those questions, if they relate to Deportier, refer back to Deportier. So they are basically put down the fact that they are going to own the conversation when it comes to rugs. And this is a very important part. It goes as far as any business. Kayaks, okay? Same deal. Kayak Chat, very big company, Feel Free Kayaks. Export kayaks to 60 countries around the world. They have got a huge network. They're a very well-trusted brand. But the problem is getting found. So by getting found and owning the domain of kayaks worldwide, they set up a site that again refers back to their product. But the questions and answers have all been researched, asked by their clients, been researched by LLMs to get accurate, true answers of what's going on. It represents their product well, and it comments about other products. And it also comments about what you can do with Kayak. So it's a complete guide. It becomes the topical authority to recommend their product, but also acts as a perfect way to be found by the LLMs and traditional search with Google and Bing and the other search engines. All right, so now let's move on to another interesting part. So 2026, topical authority, something you need to be very aware of and something that you can control within your business. And I can help you do that because I've set up a system to do this. Okay, LLMs. Now, I'll go back up here and have a quick drink because it is nearly Christmas after all. And you probably discovered I talk a lot. Okay, so what else has happened this year? Well, the year started with a roar with OpenAI becoming the dominant player. Google, towards the end of the year with the release of Gemini 3, have really leapt to the top. Then, of course, OpenAI released Google 5.2, which is also on the benchmark coming up. But what it basically boils down to, the benchmarks now have been set in the past, right? So everything now is going beyond the benchmarks. The Turing test has been passed and no one even noticed, as Sam Altman said. So the problem with this stuff is it just becomes ubiquitous. But if you don't understand it, that's where the issue really lies with your business. So let's make 2026 a year where you start to increase your understanding of what's going on. Okay, so topical authority is something that I've worked on for about the last year. It's a very important way, and you need to have your own distribution because this is my other theory. And I will show you in a minute exactly what I'm talking about, right? Particularly in the software range. You can create product very simply now, particularly with vibe coding and with the tools that are available. You can create epic movie quality videos now at literally a prompt, right? So going back to traditional advertising, everyone goes, okay, I'll put some stuff on Facebook. Let's put this really cool video up and that'll attract some attention. Yes, it will. Maybe for another year it will. Maybe for another 2. But I can guarantee in 2 years' time, it'll be total white noise. There will be so much stuff bombarded that videos will just become, oh yeah. The way people are going to get money out of their pocket and buy your product and basically use your service is their LLM is going to recommend it. And that is where you need to position yourself. You need to look at the fact the world has changed. A good example of this is basically the way that AI can iterate and invent things initially every second. It's not like it's a repository like a website that you look for the information. The information is presented to you. You just need to make the decision. And you are just about ready because the LLM has narrowed down from your history, from your past, from its memory about what you do, from what you've been able to see, what you've purchased, what you've done. It knows that you want to buy this particular thing, and if it recommends something, there's a very good chance you will. So the idea is for businesses is to be found by these things so you've actually got that. So let's look at the AI assistant and let's look at a practical use case of where these things can go. So we'll pop down here. So I, in a couple of videos ago, have launched a AI assistant range for hotels, right? Called Guest Chat. So we'll just go home here for a minute and have a look. Now, this answers all the pain points for hotels because what happens is, particularly in countries where English is not the first language, or say, I'm talking about Thailand here, basically there's nearly 40 million visitors come from all around the world, and a lot of hotels, one pain point is language. So straight away, by having an AI assistant that you just scan when you get to the hotel, and it has all the information about the hotel, it has all the data, everything that you need to know about that hotel in any language, also saves on publishing costs. These are the sort of practical things that businesses can do straight away. And the cost is not a lot, it's a cup of coffee a day, right? So here's just a couple of examples of one for Thai Life, which is a Thai hotel. And we can see here, this is their complete assistant. Someone walks in, scans the QR code, they can ask all the terms and conditions of their stay, they can ask anything, when's the bar open, what time's the beach club open, are there day tours, what can I do? And instead of the book being on the counter, it's all there, ready for them to go, right? So basically, people no longer need to go to the book, they can use it, they can be sitting by the pool, and there's a stack of different examples I've got up here. So again, here's some other assistants that have been created, some as directory sites, others as AI assistants for hotels or golf courses. These can be put on your website or they can actually be sent out on social media. Everyone should at least have an AI assistant. Now, what will happen is this is for customer service, for example, but behind the scenes, all the conversation is being captured depending on what level they want to do. Now, why is that important? And let's have a look at, instead of just trying to promote your business, let's have a look at how your business, without any promotion whatsoever, how you can use AI and the way that you've got to start thinking about how AI can increase your productivity. Okay, so here's another example. This is an example of a yacht shop in Thailand. Now, they have staff, put myself over here, they have staff that's Thai, obviously, and they're run by English speakers. So what this is quite revolutionary, and this is where the future is. And I wanted to show you this because this is something I've been working on. Now, conversation is super important because you're talking to your AI assistant. We can see here that you can talk in English or Thai for this particular product because they're the only two languages that are being spoken. But imagine this, they're running a business and they're building yachts. So the building of these yachts, when they've got their staff having to go and enter information, ask questions about what stock to use, what we do is we use the intelligence of AI at multiple levels to control everything. Check this out, it's pretty cool. Okay, so imagine your business, the stock control in your business. Just log in here. Because everything's password protected here. Oops, so I get the password right. Okay, now we're in. Okay, now, so we can see here that this is now, the stock is now being entered into the knowledge file. So people can literally say, I've just used this, I've used 6 of these screws, I've used 8 meters of that. The AI will actually go, interpret that, make the changes to your stock list. So you are talking to the stock in your business. This future is going to be very big. Okay, so back to the interface there, and back there, let's refresh that. And we can see here that the owner of the site has access to all the conversations that are going on, can generate reports. We can see what's happening here. Get back to home. Okay, so there is the user interface. Now, at the moment, you can use voice to talk in. Now, this is a really big breakthrough for next year. This is where it's all heading. So what's happened in 2025 is we can buy intelligence. The cost of intelligence is getting driven lower and lower and lower all the time. They say it's virtually negligible, which I agree with. And I'll show you an example in a minute how that changes, right? So basically, as the cost of intelligence has come down and what you can do with the intelligence increases, you look at what your standard business practices are. So forget anything pie in the sky, that you want AI to do. How easy is it to be able to just converse with everything? Basically, this is where it's heading. So 2026 is the year that not only the token cost for intelligence has come down, the ability to use live two-way speech, communication, you do not even know that you're talking to an AI. That's how clever this stuff is, right? It is exploded, but the cost has always been difficult. So for Sutherland Sally or for Bondi Bronty, you wouldn't put on a system like, say, OpenAI, where you can just go and chat to it. The costs are astronomical because anyone in the public can just start talking to it, right? At some stage, that cost will become viable. But for behind the scenes, for business or outbound calls, AI voice and people ringing straight away, because you can scale and automate the process, will be what will happen next year. Because everyone, again, is going to start going to their own personal AI assistant. And the preferred means of communication is language. It's just talking and asking what can be done. Now, we also need to obviously look at images and videos and other things, but there'll be ways that they'll be able to do that, some sort of screen or whatever on your phone or whatever. But ultimately, your AI assistant that will be with you all the time knows all about you. You can choose which company you want to go. You can swap and change. Particularly in the business world, you don't want to get tied just to ChatGPT or just to Gemini or just to Perplexity. You need to build where you can interflow let's just call it AI rather than a company. That's a better way to think of it, right? Because you're still just buying intelligence. And that way you can change what you build to whatever becomes, whether it's a price conscious thing or a better service. So I just digress there a bit. So basically, if you can imagine anything within your business that you can streamline, AI can be used because you're just buying intelligence. Here is an example, a working example of how a company can use the multilingual abilities of AI, also the conversational abilities, also the programmable ability to be able to sort out data in a microsecond and represent that data at different levels. This is where we start to get into an agentic workflow. Okay, so one agent does this, one agent does that, and you may even have a manager agent that brings it all together. But at the end of the day, you are setting tasks for these agents to do. Now, what has changed in 2025 from the start of the year till now? Well, what has changed is you give an agent a job, it's got about 30 seconds worth of memory, and it does okay, and you've got to keep going. Now, with long chain of thought, with the reasoning models, with inference time compute, with all these improvements in algorithms, now they can research for days, you know what I mean? Like, they can work on a problem and actually test itself, come back, this is where it's changing as well. So they are truly becoming knowledge workers, and all the bench tests are just being broken, absolutely broken for what AI can actually do with reasoning, because that's something that they've always struggled with, right? Humans are very good at reasoning. Machines, even though they're very good at spitting out information, with these new algorithms, they're becoming better at reasoning, and they've got memory, remember, right? So this is another huge thing. So next year is going to be a massive year of the actual implementation of this stuff into your business. And here is an example behind the scenes. Now, if it's behind the scenes, yes, you add voice. You actually go to the expense of adding the voice. You just talk to it. It talks back to you, the same as you would talk to ChatGPT. The cost of that is there, but it has come down about 70% over the course of the year, and I expect that to decrease. And the quality's got better, and the choice of different companies will increase from 11 Labs to OpenAI to whichever one you want to use. So basically, that is going to be a big transition next year. But it doesn't change the fact you still need an interface. You need some way, whether to type it in or talk to it. What happens behind the scenes, the AI handles, okay? So that is another really important thing. Okay, the other thing that's going to be very, very topical next year is basically the ability of what we call vibe coding. The whole world has changed, okay? So I can program, that's fine, but I'm not a trained programmer. I didn't go to university to learn programming. I went to university to become a teacher, but that's another story. But anyway, so basically the knowledge that you need to be able to construct your own software for your business. You may have noticed that Elon Musk, good old Elon Musk, has bought out the concept of, instead of Microsoft, he's competing, and he's going to call it macro hard, which, interesting play on words. But the thing that is interesting about what he said is you no longer need just a subscription for software. If there's a particular piece of software that you use within your business, you actually vibe code it up and you create it in your own business, which means the skill set for your employees will shift. So it's not about replacing jobs with AI. Certainly there's going to be jobs replaced. There's no doubt. There are some knowledge-based jobs that you just do not, particularly when you've got voice and reasoning, that can be replaced very, very simply, and they will probably never come back. But, lots of things have done that in the history of technology. That's the way it goes. Doesn't mean it's world-changing. But the difference with AI, we've never had a technology that can actually reason and think for itself. So where this will end up will be anyone's guess. But basically the ability, and next year, and this is just going back to this idea of there's a bubble, the big difference with this is there's infrastructure being built. So if we take Stargate, for example, Project Stargate in Abilene, Texas, that OpenAI are waiting to come on board with. Once all these data centers start to open up next year, the price of tokens will get driven down, the speed of actually the way that AI can respond will increase dramatically because the inference time compute will increase. So there's going to be huge jumps next year. So everything we're talking about now, we're basing on what we know now, let alone any updates. The updates are just going to be mind-blowing in what you can actually do. So the first ability is to get your head around the fact that the way things were done is really changing because we have this intelligence and we have this reasoning. So if you take a website, for example, a website is a static thing. It won't be a static thing anymore. Your old code, the way you used to run your business, your old CRM, The AI doesn't necessarily need to integrate into that. It can just create itself. It can create its own software. If you've got a subscription to, I don't know, MyHelp or any of these other products, and you're only using part of those, you just basically code your own. Now, it sounds easy, it rolls off the tongue, oh, you just code your own. Yes, there is skills involved, and believe me, when you're vibe coding, you need to understand what the LLM, the limitations are of the LLM, but you can work through it. So, I predict that next year will be a huge year for people just creating their own software for their business, which means that as an employee, your skill level, if you understand AI, you don't have to be a coder or a programmer. If you are a good have a general understanding of business, you've got a fairly good, you know your way around a keyboard, and you know what your desired result is, you can start to create tools. Now, I will give you an example down here of some of the things that I've created. So, if we go back, for example, here to the rug site, we can see that there's lots and lots and lots of images on the site. Now, these images have been created, we'll just click into home here. All these images were created with the help, obviously, of AI to put them in situ. So these rug images, so straight away, this becomes a useful tool just for the imaging side of things. But basically, where we've actually got this site, these images, I needed to get the owner to name these images. I don't know what that rug is. I don't know what the sizes of these rugs are. So I created a tool that they can literally look at the images. They're not downloading the images. They're just looking at where they are online. And they name the images. And that way, the LLM, the AI, has context. So here is a tool that I've created for my users to be able to improve the product. Okay? I didn't go somewhere else and use a third-party tool. I created my own. And this, I believe, is where the big shift will be. Certainly the last 2 years, there's lots of people out there that have done what they call this no-code, and good on them. You know, they've used Make or they've used N8N, and they've created these workflows. That's fine, but you get to the point where when people start to create their own and they get inquisitive, they want to be able to implement it into their business. And for the first time in history, you can do some really advanced stuff. So I'll just quickly run through a couple of examples that I've got here. So this is a very good example of how AI can increase productivity. All right? Now, take note of this. Let's go back to Sutherland Sally and all the questions and answers that she's got. And there are hundreds and hundreds of these questions and answers, okay, that are in there ready to go. Let's actually log in here and we'll have a look. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. Here's a really good example of trying to achieve a goal. We will go into Bondi will do. Okay, and we'll go to transcript editor. Okay, so again, just so we've got some idea. So there's Bondi Bronte, there's all the questions and answers, and we can see that if we go to the Bronte answered page, okay, we can see lots and lots of questions and answers. And if we flip that back to the administration side, we can see here are all the pages. There are hundreds and hundreds of pages here. There are 3,593 questions asked. Now, the majority of those questions were synthesized. They were researched questions. They were synthesized. But this is how fast this thing is coming that you can do. All right, so going back even 6, 7 months, 3 months ago, the way that you could get the information to answer these questions was a process. And the amount of tokens and data that it used to get the question and the answer going through the software that I created had a cost. So let's just call it a ballpark figure of 5,000 questions and answers costs $1,000 US. Let's just call that as what it does. That's what it was costing in tokens, in compute, in everything that was doing. So to create a site that's got 3,500 questions and answers, comprehensively researched, answering client questions, answering the general public's questions, that is the cost. But here's a perfect example. I spent a week creating this tool, vibe coding this tool, and what this does is this bypasses the need to go through one process. It shortcuts it, uses AI intelligence at multiple levels. And those 6,000 questions, you know what they cost me? Under $1. So from $1,000 to $1. But not just that. Those 5,000 questions would take nearly a week to go through the process of having to be questions, answered, asked, page published, everything. This does it instantly, literally instantly. So 6,000 or 5,000 questions for $1,000, virtually for $1, done within a day, and all sites updated, okay? That is how fast, and what I talk about using AI to increase productivity. You make your own tools. Here's just another couple of examples. So anyone who's started to use OpenAI's Codex will notice that quite often when it prints stuff out, there's extra bits of code and extra whatever, and it becomes very difficult when you're vibe coding to cut and paste. And people vibe code in different ways. I prefer to vibe code by actually talking to the LLM, getting the code, putting it in there myself, testing it, having a read of it. It's a bit slower, but at least I know what's going on. It's not a black box. I understand the process, and I think that is the key, and I think people will cotton on to that. There's no point putting your entire business in something you don't understand. You need to be able to know the workflow. So here's a thing that I just dumped the code in. It's a tool that I made that helps me strip it out, ready to go. So it's an interim process. Here's a tool that I created. Here's another tool. When I'm doing Bondi Bronty, I needed to have the businesses located on the lat longs so we could actually identify where the businesses were. And same with Sutherland Sally and all the other sites that I've got around the place. So we can see here on the map, I needed to be able to get the GPS coordinates correct. So I created another app that helps me put in the basic information, and then basically we can use that data to be able to position things on map. There's another tool. Here's another tool. Someone gives me a PDF document, I need to convert it to text. There's a lot of them out there, but I've got this processing and working within my system. Okay, here is another tool. Now, Bondi Bronty, how do we notify the businesses that there is actually something going on? I've created a very complicated marketing tool. It's going to be all about distribution, right? It's all right to have an app, but you need to be able to contact people. You need to be able to use the information that is actually coming from them. This is the smart move. If I click process, it is now scraping that site. It is finding the information. It's constructing an email. It's using an icebreaker question. It's explaining to them about their business. It's going to send that email to them, okay? So we are now using tools for our marketing. Here's another one here, right? So if we look at some of the emails we sent out to Sutherland clients, we can see I've created an AI app that enables me to do that. I can check when the email was sent. I can see when the email was sent. I can resend the email. The emails themselves contain the information of, back into here for a minute, there we go, there's an email that we've sent, okay, it's got the information about the company. I can recompose the email. So if I recompose the email, there's the email that I sent to that business, showing them their business, our business, what we do. These tools all work together. So if you've got skills, you can actually create a whole ensuite of your own software, going back to Elon Musk. That's all he's doing. All right, you pay so much for Microsoft, pay me a tenth of that cost. And you press the button, bang, it's created software for your business. So product is not going to be an issue. Everyone will have product in abundance. But if you've got a business, you've still got to work out how you're going to market. And this is why I put a lot of thought into this process. Okay, let's move on a little bit more. Again, I've showed you a couple more of these AI assistant outputs. There's one for a hotel, terms and conditions of your stay. All right, click on that. It'll go in. Every hotel's got a book on the counter of where you can say that, the Innkeepers Act or whatever you want to do. Basically, it saves the hotels having to do that. So using the AI technology, guests can ask questions, get answers, everything they want to know. And this is a legal requirement for a hotel. So there, it's been addressed there straight away. You can call straight away to the reception. Let's click on your chat here. You can call reception, you can contact them online, you can ask anything you want, or you just ask your own questions, right? Then balloons is an event, okay? There's an event here, we want to know. Perfect, they rock up. Oh, is ballooning safe? What are the weather rules? What do I do? How much it costs? How do I book? Right? Simple. You scan the QR code, put this out on your social media, put it up on your website. It becomes a conduit between your client and you, all right? And it's answered by AI, and at different levels, you control the conversation. Have a look at another one. Oh, that's the rug site back there. Oh, and that's the login. All right. So what I'll do is I'll leave it there for the minute. There's a lot more I could discuss, but let's just recap. There's been huge advances in 2025. The big thing to come out of 2025, obviously the huge advances in the LLMs, in their capability, in their reasoning, in image and video production. It's been a massive year for that. in the lowering of latency for voice, the better TTL response for voice, right? So you literally get into instant response where you just do not know. It's an AI talking to you on the phone or whatever the case may be. So all these need to be taken into account and implemented next year. So what is next year? Next year is definitely going to be the year where people are going to get stuck in and start to understand AI. If they don't, it's at their own peril. It is going to be a very challenging year for anyone that owns a business because they have to make a choice. And the pressure is building and building because, as I just showed you, one part of my business, if I can save $1,000 and make it $1, and that's just one little part of my business, right? And I apply that across the board. And then I look at my marketing. How can I be in the marketing area, my distribution network in the long run? How do I do that? There is going to be a huge growth, obviously, in video content. And what I mean, not just the AI slop. People need, like me, to get on and talk to you and say, hey, this is what we can do. This is how to use AI. So humans are certainly not out of the loop. I've designed these apps so people that English isn't their first language can use them. I've made them multilingual. You now can use the advantage of what the AI intelligence can do, not just ChatGPT or not just Gemini. It's not about talking to it. It's about implementing that knowledge, that intelligence into your business to do real tasks. And that's what 2026 will be. It will be the year that starts to really shuffle, where it sorts out those who understand AI and those who don't understand AI. Okay, well, and voice, of course. Voice, I think by the end of the year, voice will be very, very cheap and you'll be able to really start to see it. Because when you don't have to click on anything, you just start talking to your AI assistant and it comes back with the answers you want. That is a real change in our social fabric. And also bearing in mind at the same time, I guarantee by the end of the year, there's so much AI video slop, there'll be some fantastic creations. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking back creativity and trying to get your message across. But the conversation is where you need to be. You need to own the conversation in 2026. I'm here to help. My name's Dave. Thanks for joining me over the year. I hope you find my videos useful. I will endeavour to make some more next year and keep you guys informed. Feel free to contact me if you're interested in finding out more about AI and how it can be implemented into your business. I'm more than happy to talk to you. And thanks again. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy 2026, and I shall see you in the new year.